Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about happiness. To me, you have to have this happiness factor that comes from within. In my book, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram, my last chapter is about gratitude. And I talk about another book by Rick Hanson called Hardwiring Happiness. I highly recommend that book. And this book is somewhat similar. This is written by Shawn Anchor, and Shawn is a positive psychology expert and researcher. And he says basically the same thing that Rick Hanson says in Hardwiring Happiness, is that we have the ability to see things from a positive vantage point. And a vantage point is something he talks about a lot. And he says we have to have different vantage points. We can't be narrow focused. And as a perfect example, I was talking to my brother yesterday. He and I are very different. I mentioned something very specific, and his response, I was like, well, no. And then he clarified, and I realized I was the one that was looking at it from a very narrow focus, and he was looking at it from the complete opposite vantage point. And I said, that's a great point. I'm sorry I didn't look at it from that aspect. Shawn talks much more about the happiness factor in terms of for a work environment. So he goes all around the world lecturing about the happiness and gratitude factor to have more productive employees. I'm just going to read one short part just because for those of you who may or may not know, I lived in San Antonio for 21 years, San Antonio, Texas. And as soon as I got there, or even one of the reasons why I chose to live there, was because I felt that people were so happy and so friendly. And that was very important to me. And so he says, in 2011, after spending a month traveling to share my research in 7 Latin American countries, I returned to snowy Boston and found it to be a lot colder. But I don't mean just the temperature. Research has found that one of the reasons for higher rates of resilience and optimism among workers in Latin America is their extraordinary social support networks with coworkers, family, and friends. And as a side note, I have lived and worked in multiple countries in Latin America, and I totally agree with that. And then he says, my plane had landed in Boston, but my family and roots were back in Texas. It turned out that this research was on the money. Without my network of support, I was not only less happy, but less productive, less motivated, and less effective in my work. So as soon as the grueling semester ended, I moved the hub of my research to San Antonio, Texas. And again, yes, he has family in San Antonio, but I would say everybody is happier in San Antonio. He says research has found that altruism is one of the greatest buffers against depression. And another chapter in my book is about selfless service. And Shawn says, doing something for someone else raises our levels of hope, joy, and happiness, and in turn, our success rates. To reap these benefits, we must shift the focus off ourselves and onto others. Think about it. When you are most negative, when you are feeling depressed, when you are frustrated about how bad your day has been, when you are feeling inferior compared to your peers, that's when your world is most contracted. Your entire world is you. You're so zoomed in on yourself, you're not even at street level. You are at only you level. It is hard to see possibilities and opportunities, much less ways to help others, when all you can see is yourself. That's all I'm going to read for this book. I am a major proponent about a daily gratitude practice. And what he talks about is, some people say, oh, I've got nothing to be grateful for. No, everyone has many, many, many things to be grateful for. And it's all about the vantage point and looking at things from that perspective. So I highly recommend my book, of course, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram, also Rick Hanson's Hardwiring Happiness, And then this is before happiness. And before happiness, the same author wrote The Happiness Advantage.